actually, the vendor told me, we don't have that. She said, we used to have that in the 80s, beginning of the 90s, and now we don't have a single book about Europe for kids. And I found that really scary. But it kind of goes together with the experience we all have about Europe and culture. I was a publisher at one point, and I was taught that you should never put the name Europe as a title of a book because you're sure you won't sell a single copy of it. And you shouldn't use Europe for the title of movies, you shouldn't use it for TV series. I mean, it only works a bit with Eurovision, but that's kind of an exception. And I personally think that until we address this problem, and this general idea in the public, you were talking about the public and involving the public, and until we address this, I think there will be no next generation EU. Because you can put as much money as you want in all kind of policies. You can stay on the rational side as much as you want, but until you get to the emotional side of people and you address that, I don't think you can imagine that Europe will have a future because, for example, look at the pandemic. I mean, what happened when the pandemic started spreading around? The first reaction of everyone, including the most European and Europhile leaders, was a nationalist reaction. Yeah, that was the first instinct of everyone. And even the leaders who kind of built their political career on Europe, they gave their first speeches when it was about lockdown and everything completely outside of the European dimension. And then, of course, rationality kicks in. And rationality tells us that we're better together to face the pandemic and look at the huge steps that have been taken ever since. And now we're here and we're talking about a Hamiltonian moment and a common budget and a huge investment and recovery plan and all that. But the instinct, the emotional part, even of committed Europeans, is still a national reaction before everything else. And I think that when you talk about European culture and ideals and values and all that, usually you're accused of being an idealist. You're accused of being a dreamer or outside of reality. But my opinion is that realists know that elections are not won by rational argument, that big decisions are not taken by rational arguments. And so until European policies are only touching rationality, I don't think we will be able to gain the support of the people. And who knows this? Who's a realist today? Do you know which is the European country that spends a higher quota of its budget on culture? It's Hungary. And why is that? I don't think you can accuse Mr. Orban of not being a realist and a political realist in his own way and for his own agenda, which is probably not ours. But he does know what the value of culture is in terms of winning people's hearts and people's minds. And you know who else was a realist? It was Franklin Delano Roosevelt, who almost 100 years ago, 90 years ago, faced a huge crisis and faced this huge revival of national populism in his own country and in Europe. And what did he do to face that? of course, he put in place the New Deal, so new economic policies, a kind of building the welfare state, huge infrastructure plan, new antitrust legislation. But then he did two additional things, which I think were absolutely fundamental. Number one, he changed the way he addressed public opinion. And he introduced a completely different way of communicating. Not only using the radio, we know about the radio and fireside chats, so what was at the time new media, but also using all the marketing techniques that had been developed by the private sector back in the days, using opinion polls, using sophisticated tools to assess and address public opinion. And this is something that we're not doing, because we think that we can hold a press conference or that we can, announce a big set of measures and that somehow this will filter into public opinion because then they'll see results and they'll see the effects of all this. But it doesn't work like this, because we have, for example, on social media, it's not the pro-Europeans that are the establishment anymore. It's the anti-Europeans and the nationalists that are the establishment. They're completely dominating the conversation and the discussion, and they're using much more sophisticated tools than we do to affirm their own agenda. And we're here and we're trying to kind of analyze the situation, and from time to time we produce a report saying, well, actually what the Russians are doing is not so nice, and from time to time we're even trying to blame the Chinese in some, and we observe what's going on, but there's very little on the net that is actually Europe and democracy affirming with contemporary tools. And the second point that Roosevelt developed in his New Deal agenda is federal project number one. And that was about involving thousands of writers, of actors, of artists, of theater people to produce what they used to call the biggest self-portrait of America that was ever produced. And what they did then, involving all kinds of creators, people don't know about this so much, but a lot of American culture right after the war comes from the effort that was done before the war with this program. People like Orson Welles, like John Steinbeck, like Jackson Pollock, they all moved their first steps through this program. But what was interesting about this was that, you say, well, we have a big cultural government program financing artists and things. That's going to be very boring, because that's going to be, kind of an hagiography of the situation, maybe good feelings and good things. And so, again, nobody will buy those books and nobody will see that art or will see that TV. But what they did at the time, which is brilliant, and that's what I think Europe needs today, is they accepted controversy. They didn't do an hagiography of the American government or the American situation. They were the first ones to explore deeply, in depth, the theme of slavery, the history of Native Americans, the history of migration. And they addressed and they allowed their artists, their writers, and those people to address those issues in a very free and controversial way. And I think, again, this is something we need if we want to produce a European culture today. I mean, it's better to put a face on the Euronote and accept controversy, because it's never going to be the right face. You know, there will always be 100 people that stand up and say, why did you put that guy on the banknote? You will never have consensus on that, obviously. But it's better to look to stem that controversy than to have nothing. You know, than to look for some kind of neutral identity that will be acceptable to everyone, but that will inflame and create emotion in basically nobody. And I think that's why it's your program and the agenda that the EESC has been putting forward over the last 2 years is so fundamental, because the idea of the renaissance, based on your 3 pillars, so sustainable development, peace, and culture, it's not just something for Italians, you know, because we like the Renaissance and we always like to make that reference, and we're so proud of what happened, and it's really not something that it's not a whim. It's not something that only concerns us. Because if I look at my country today, today there's fresh data, actually. When I was walking in, there's a new opinion poll that came out in Italy that says that 44% of the Italian public opinion has a worse opinion of the EU after the crisis, and only 4% has a better opinion after the crisis. Just came out today. And we know about another poll that said that most Italians now think that their best friends are China and Russia, and that their worst enemies are Germany and France. And I don't think that's just an Italian phenomenon. It's absolutely irrational. It's obviously not based on rationality. You can keep this for a while at bay, because of course now everybody's waiting for the recovery plan and the resources that will flow. And so of course, I mean, for now, you know, you can keep those bad feelings under the cover and hope for the best. But I don't think you will be able to rebuild a real support for the process of European integration if you don't make it exciting again, if you don't make it a subject that people want to put in children's book. And you're not paying for the children's book to be written. You know, it's not as easy as that. You need to have writers that want to write about that subject, publishers that think it will sell, and a public that will actually read it. And this is true for all subjects. So, well, I could go on because I'm an Italian, and so I could ramble on and on. Maybe I should have actually read my speech, because it would have it would have been timed in a better way. 2 more minutes. There's this book called Blink, The Power of First Impressions. It was a bestseller a few years ago. And it says that people are conditioned by first impressions. So, and you know, and whatever comes after that, it can alter that, but not so much. I mean, because the blink, the first moment, is what makes a decision. And during this pandemic crisis, unfortunately, in Italy, for example, the blink was, we're alone. We're left alone, there's no EU solidarity, and the only good speech that was given by a European politician dealing with the Italian situation was actually the Albanian Prime Minister, who did a wonderful speech, but he's not a member, and symbolically sent a plane with doctors during the first 2 weeks, and that was, and all the rest which was so much more decisive, the action that's been taken by the European Commission, the action that's been taken by the European Central Bank, the action that's been taken a few weeks later by governments, the Council, the German, French proposal, and now the recovery plan. All this, which is huge, and I understand that, I mean, that's on everybody's minds, but I don't think it will be enough if we don't break this European taboo of we have broken the taboo of a common budget, but we now need to break the taboo of neutral communication, of neutral culture, of no symbols, of no decisions that will be controversial, of a culture that will be sanitized and that will create no debate, because we need to have everybody on board. I think it's much better if we bring controversy and if we start affirming our ideals, our values, and our culture in a much stronger way, so that even people, we might not agree, you know, we might have a discussion and we might not agree, but this disagreement will produce more energy than no discussion, than trying to sanitize all this. And that's why we also need a cultural recovery plan, which is not so much about money as much as about the way the philosophy that's behind it. And from what I've seen of your works over the last couple of years, this is part of what you've been trying to put together. And so I hope that you will keep going with this effort. And I'm really done now.
Thank you so much, Giuliano. For the one that want to know more about what he's writing, he likes, as all the philosophers, joking with the controversy and pushing for the debate. He just wrote a few weeks ago a fantastic pamphlet with more than 10 concrete proposals how to get this done. And so you will find Google is a fantastic engine, although it's American to find everything. And now we will have another video message by Maros Sefcovic, the Vice President of the European Commission. He would have been with us too, because he's also in charge of institutional relations, also a good friend of us. But he has to guarantee the permanence in the plenary this morning at the place of Ursula von der Leyen. So now, please send the message of Sefcovic. Thank you.
President Jair, dear Luca, dear members, I'm very sad that I cannot be with you in person today at the last plenary session of your mandate. It provides an excellent opportunity both to mark the achievements of the past 5 years and to look forward to continued close cooperation in the next mandate. The work of the European Economic and Social Committee is highly valued by the Commission and by me personally. Your concerns, questions and suggestions reflect those of Europeans from all walks of life and provide us with an invaluable perspective on our policies and actions. You have contributed a great deal of useful feedback from those on the ground with regards to administrative burdens, including through the Fit for Future platform and through our fitness checks and evaluations. You helped make the European Citizens Initiative a reality by providing support and expertise to organizers. And you have made use of your network for participatory dialogue, such as through the Circular Economy Stakeholders platform. I have had the honor of appearing before you many times in my various roles as a commissioner, and I continue to encourage my colleagues to do the same. I would like to use this opportunity to say a personal thank you to Luca as well as his predecessor, Georges Dassy, for all your hard work, determination, and esprit de corps. I'm glad that many of you will continue to serve on the committee in the next mandate. We will certainly have a lot to do as we strive to deal with the ongoing COVID-19 crisis, whilst also looking to the future and embracing the twin green and digital transitions. An immediate focus is, of course, on our recovery. And here you and the organizations and networks you represent have an undisputable role to play in ensuring that it's robust, equal, and democratic. The crisis has, however, thrown a sharp light on the EU's vulnerabilities as well as presenting opportunities that we cannot afford to miss. That is why we will use strategic foresight to identify and understand emerging challenges, to map possible paths, to preferred future, and to better steer our action. As laid out in our first annual strategic foresight report, which I presented last week, this is what strategic foresight is about: anticipating, exploring, acting. We need to make sure that Europe remains a global and economic leader, helping to shape the world. The first report focused on resilience. COVID-19 has made it clear that resilience is necessary in all policy areas if we want to bounce forward and emerge stronger by accelerating the green and digital transitions. These trends are of a great significance for the European Economic and Social Committee. For example, changes in the labor market, hastened by the pandemic, mean we will need to invest in future jobs and skills for green and digital economy, something that will undoubtedly have an impact on those you represent. The report and its successors will inform Commission work programs and become part of our interinstitutional discussions on multi-annual programming. Your committee has an important role to play here too. The Commission attaches great importance to feedback from the representatives of civil society, including in defining how the European project should evolve. This is why we count on you on your positive reception to the Foresight report. Allow me to finish by urging you to continue your excellent work in engaging with us and with those you represent, including by spreading the word about the Commission's public consultations. There are 53 such consultations currently open. And a final note to once again say thank you to you all and the best wishes to those who are moving on to the pastures new.
Thank you so much also to my dear friend Maro Sefcovic. And now you will have, I hope, the pleasure to listen to my speech. Ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, this is the last plenary I have the honor to address as President of the EESC. 2.5 years ago, in April 2018, I invited you to dream with me of a re-energized Europe and to work together for a second European Renaissance. I called for a strong civic engagement for our sustainable European future. 2.5 years ago seems like yesterday, and at the same time, so long ago. Times of change stood ahead. I saw the European Union faced with profound transformation, an economic transformation, an energy and ecological transformation, a deep social transformation, a democratic and participatory transformation, and lastly, a geopolitical transition in international relations, which has even accelerated in last weeks. I am thinking here of the unbelievable level of repression in Belarus against a growing movement of people demanding freedom, and democracy, or the unacceptable decision of Turkey President Erdogan concerning Hagia Sophia and the growing threats to Greek and Cypriot sovereignty. And last, the United Kingdom, which you have always recognized as a beacon of fundamental principle of law that decided officially to break the international legitimacy of a ratified agreement. Dear colleagues, I continue to believe that the EESC, our house of European civil society, representing what we called during our 60th anniversary commemoration, the House of Europe at Work, has a key role to play in shaping these transformations. Europe at Work is the lever, the catalyst, and powerhouse for this renaissance. Ahead of us stood the European elections, with founded fears of the impact of raising nationalism and xenophobia on voting patterns. Yet we knew that we needed to remain master of our fortune, plan ahead and create together a new Europe with the voice of civil society at its heart. Our contribution to the road to Sibiu and beyond was an important element, seeding a renewed commitment to an EU that delivers on the issue that really matter to people. All these challenges are still present today. Yet little did we expect that we would be hit by a global pandemic, which in the course of few months profoundly changed the way we live together and substantially impacted our economy, our social and our personal lives, making uncertainty the new normality. We must question the way our society functions, the importance we give to protecting our elders or more fragile. We must reflect on how to better value and compensate those people who keep our society alive, economically, socially, and culturally. Nurses, caretakers, salespeople, cleaners, teachers, artists, to name but a few. We have realized that must reinstill our society with a greater sense of compassion and solidarity. In one sentence, we should ask ourselves, more than 2 centuries after the French Revolution, it is finally the time for fraternity. Je passe au français. Chers collègues,
Colleagues, back in 2016, Frans Timmermans, in a book called Fraternity, Let's Reconstruct Our Links, he invited us to put this idea at the center of this century's policies. Remember, in 1875, for Victor Hugo, liberty was a right, equality was a fact, and fraternity was an obligation. Moving to Edgar Morin, a great French philosopher, known for having come up with the idea of a common destiny. And in his most recent work, Why Fraternity, he invites us to, for us to throw everything at reconstructing the idea of liberty, equality, and fraternity. This need for humanity, which we see we need in our society, I think is even greater now, this need during this pandemic. We've all had to rethink our priorities, but we've also seen a political convergence, a social convergence, unprecedented in history. The basis of this is a deep idea in Europeans that we need to transform to develop, and which now needs to be translated into actions. Interpreting this demand, Pope Francois, in his address, well, quite a unique address at the European House Ambrosetti a couple of weeks ago, Cernobbio Seminary, he said very clearly that the economy has seen a paradigm change. Now, science and technology are at the heart of more sustainable, more healthy, more human, more social, more integrated, more environmental, and more orientated towards the common good. All of that is a new economic model. Remembering the key point in Robert Schumann's declaration, he talked about production and solidarity going hand in hand. St. Peter also said that we need to show this solidarity to those that need it most, the human condition. So in that message, I think he anticipated what is the heart of the new encyclical, Fratelli Tutti. We're all brothers, and that will be signed next on the 3rd of October this year in Assisi. So we could wonder, will this idea of fraternity forge a new European renaissance, which is obviously happening?
Colleagues, our human fragility has once more been revealed. The current pandemic is a wake-up call. It is in light of this imperative that I would like to highlight a few achievements and challenges of my mandate. Of course, there are many more that you can find in another view of in the publication I have prepared. It was not an easy mandate. However, as the late John Belushi said in Animal House, when the going gets tough, the tough get going. I am proud that sustainable development was one of my priorities, and it will certainly be part of the legacy of this presidency. I will never forget the strength of Greta Thunberg's voice in our plenary, Civil Society for Renaissance, on the 21st of February 2018, warning us on the need to radically change our lifestyle to protect the future of our heart, her generation, and future ones. Of course, such radical change cannot come without a price. If we cannot balance tomorrow's economy with the necessary shift, we risk increasing social disparities, breaking open all divides in our society, rekindling xenophobia, and seeing citizens seeking protection from a fast-changing, uncomfortable reality, in the words of demagogue and nationalist. We must thus continue to work on creating cohesive and peaceful societies, promoting a new intergenerational pact, and on inventing joint narratives which shape our thought and action. I would thus like to mention my initiative on peace and borders in Europe, which took me from Belfast to Sopron, from Berlin to Nicosia. Moreover, I would not want to forget my visit to Krakow at the very beginning of my mandate, during which we highlighted the reconciliation of memories as one of the crucial challenges for the Europe of today. In addition, let me stress the still not solved challenge of a fair and sustainable management of migration and asylum. We must continue to work on these challenges of our borders both physically, political, and mental one, together with our neighbor countries and international partners, in order to create a just future for all. Moreover, Europe must invest in its historical links with Africa. As I said several times, a sustainable Africa-EU alliance could be a significant step towards progress in this century, as my mission to Ethiopia and Senegal have clearly demonstrated. Furthermore, you are aware of my passion for culture. Culture as a key force for cohesion and reconciliation, both giving meaning and prompting us to question our lives and our society, is more important than ever. Since the performance of Orfeo e Mainun, highlighting the beauty of culture and its diversity during our 60th anniversary celebration, I have been always advocating culture as the powerful engine for change in these crucial times. As the late Philippe Daverio, a fine connoisseur of the revolutionary force of the Renaissance of Leonardo da Vinci, said, he died just a few days ago, and I quote, "I always believe that culture will say the word," end of the quote. Of this, I am fully convinced. I would also like to highlight our successful actions in shaping the future of Europe, such as our successful drive to contribute to and be part of the Planet Conference on the Future of Europe. Starting from the joint action I initiated with former President of the European Committee of the Region, Karl-Heinz Lamberts, to whom I want to pay here my tribute, for a permanent and structured mechanism of citizen consultation through civil society organizations and local authorities. Lastly, our clear stance on the MFF and the recovery package Next Generation EU, where we were the first to call for a European health union, now announced by President von der Leyen as a priority in her outstanding State of the Union speech yesterday in the Parliament. Dear colleagues, I am proud of the work we were able to achieve, and thanks all those who have worked for this. Yet, allow me a point of warning. Hand in hand with the great potential of the EESC comes a clear responsibility. As I stated in my inauguration speech, let me quote Matthew, verse 12:25. "Every kingdom divided against itself is laid waste, and no city or house divided against itself will stand." As outgoing president, I call for the EESC to stand united, members and staff, and open to possibilities this new reality presents us with. Often, there seems to be a fear of change, yet by insisting on keeping things as they always been, we are endangering the mission of the very committee we all, I am convinced, so strongly believe in. Dear colleagues, it has been an intense journey, and we have achieved a lot. Yet sometimes it is not about pondering whether the journey or the destination is more important. It is about the company we are in. And now, as many of you do not understand Italian, please put your headset if you want to follow myself. Cari colleghi,
Ladies and gentlemen, may I begin by thanking all of those, and there are very many of them, who, in their different roles, at different levels of responsibility in the institutions, and the members of the administration who have always positively contributed to achieving our aims, and who've also shown remarkable dedication during unprecedented crises. Their perseverance, which isn't always visible on an immediate basis, has made it possible for us to continue to create added impact. I'd like to thank as well those who, in certain political roles and certain leadership roles, have shown a level of determination or even obstinacy in pursuing their aims. And they've done this even at the cost of risking the institution and its proper functioning. And they've actually shown how true it was when Giulio Andreotti said, "Power undermines those who don't have it." And there's also the famous saying that there's no limit to the worst. Ladies and gentlemen, crises reveal people's true nature. They show the stuff of which people are made, and they emphasize both weaknesses and strengths. So, along with a famous Sicilian writer, Leonardo Sciascia, in Il giorno della civetta, in the famous discussion between Captain Bilodo and the mafia chief, they talk about men, half men, menlets, and so forth. And this is the kind of literature that people are reading in middle school in Italy. I'd like to thank with great affection and gratitude my cabinet, my dream team. Thanks to Stefano Martinelli, Catherine Hyde, Daniela Vincenti, Cinzia Secchi, and Daniela Rondinelli, and also Alessandra Spaglietta, Ulla Sofidis, Bianca Cosar, Ulrika Arvidsson, Gabriela Hausmann, and Claudia Hustup. And last but not least, my tireless and extraordinary head of cabinet, Magda Herboska. Your professionalism, passion, dedication, patience, resilience, curiosity, and spirit of brotherhood. And there's a great deal that women have contributed to this, have made what we've achieved possible. So many of us didn't know each other at the beginning of this mandate, but together we set ourselves a challenge. The re-EU naissance will take place through the feelings, the hearts, and the heads of individuals. And it won't happen if we don't take risks. It's only possible to achieve things that are new in nature if you're very daring. Ladies and gentlemen, I hoped that Marta Cartabia, an extraordinary woman, the first woman president of the Italian Constitutional Court, who concluded her mandate just last week, I hoped that she would be with us. But last June the 2nd, she recalled that amongst the many meanings of the word res publica, there's one that we often forget. People don't just suffer, they're not just the passive recipients of decisions that are made, that they participate and they are creators of these decisions. And reminding us of the words of Tocqueville, she said that people emerge under these circumstances in collective form: associations, linguistic minorities, religious groups, families, schools, universities, mayors, political parties, cooperatives, enterprises. All of these bodies are recognized by the Constitution and actively, not passively, contribute to constructing the public good. I think that all of these matters are actually the product of all European constitutional traditions, and all of this reminds us of the other important task that has fallen to the Economic and Social Committee.
I would like to express my warm thanks to our Secretary General, Gianluca Brunetti, and the committed staff of the EESC administration. I am sure you will continue to serve for the better this House. I wish also the future President, the designated one, Christa Schwenk, much success and strength in leading this magnificent House, which I was proud to serve. We are at a crossroad, and we must act fast, bringing together everybody's passion, strength, diversity, and creativity, and leaving no one behind. It is a daunting task, yet, to quote Seneca, even if fear will have more arguments, choose hope. Whatever it takes, I try to do so in the remit of my mandate. Grazie. I can't imagine how the world and Europe has changed in these 30 months since I took the presidency of EESC. In that time, there was a strong fear in Europe of a dramatic sovereignist U-turn. And so I proposed to dare to dream a sustainable Europe, and I called this dream Renaissance. The COVID-19 pandemic, the worst crisis ever in the EU history, and the impressive capacity of Europe to be united, face the pandemic, and build up a strategy for the future. Europe has changed faster than ever, and we, the EESC, have tried to be at the core of this change, because no change can be realized without the active role of civil society.
We have started to clean up your mess, and we will not stop until we are done.
I have been the first one to invite in an institution Greta Thunberg, this young girl, that alone has created an enormous world movement for change. A few months later, I was with President of the Committee of the Region at the time, Karl-Heinz Lamberts, the first to launch an idea of a permanent mechanism of citizen consultation, the Conference on the Future of Europe, a new big opportunity to think all together, citizen, politician. I think that this force can be a drive changer. J'étais toujours convaincu que sans paix, il n'y a aucune possibilité de vrai progrès. C'est pour cela que j'ai lancé un projet particulier durant ma présidence, Paix et frontières, partant de Belfast, une frontière encore de division, mais qui nous rappelle aussi le drame de Brexit, passant par Sopron et Berlin, qui étaient des frontières abattues qui ont permis la réconciliation d'Europe, et finissant à Chypre, où existe encore une frontière physique, le fil barbelé qui divise la terre européenne entre deux. Les frontières, ils doivent devenir des lieux de réconciliation et pas de division. Le progrès de l'Afrique était au cœur de la dégradation Schuman qui a fondé l'Europe. Aujourd'hui encore, l'alliance entre la nouvelle zone de libre-échange africaine et le marché intérieur européen peut devenir la plus puissante forme de croissance durable dans le monde dans les prochains 50 ans. Peace means also to solve the real big challenge of this century, that is migration and asylum. We should stop to transform this challenge in a divisive tragedy for all Europeans, as we have done in the last 10 years. We need sustainable, fair and resilient solutions together. It's time to deliver. C'è bisogno di una dinamica, c'è bisogno di una intelligenza emozionale e questa ce la può dare la cultura. Ho posto la cultura come una delle priorità della mia presidenza. Credo di essere stato il primo presidente di un'istituzione europea a farlo. Una narrazione nuova, positiva, dopo il tempo delle ideologie, che ci aiuti a avere una contronarrazione positiva di fronte alle narrazioni di divisione, di xenofobia, di paura che i sovranisti diffondono. Il mondo sta cambiando rapidamente e noi possiamo osare e sognare un'Europa diversa. Un'Europa che sappia dare risposte concrete ai suoi cittadini, alle sue imprese, ai suoi lavoratori. L'Europa ha un futuro, ma soprattutto ha il volto dei giovani e delle donne.
In times of crisis like this pandemic, we need to bring citizens together to construct its future. Empower and strong civil society are key in this process.
Culture is cultivate young generation with creativity and deep sense of the future to come through innovation, solidarity, with the strength of one heritage.
Together we can make things better if we learn to talk and listen. Founded on forgiveness, a flag with golden stars that glisten. We are Europe, we are one.
Thank you, dear colleagues. We have finished 12 minutes before the scheduled, so we are going to go now the technical pause for the change of the booth. We will see here again at 12 o'clock for the farewell ceremony to the members that are leaving the committee. Thank you.